Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. What's happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. His name is Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to talk about in the land of entertainment, so we definitely want to talk that movies, TV, and comics talk that you know from the ODPH. But we're saying after the show, make sure to swing on over to ODPHpodcast.com. Join the conversation on our social media accounts where we'd like to keep the conversation rolling all weekend long. You can check out the Parlay Point section. New comics blogs drop today. Stacked lineup coming from Boom Studios. Just putting that out there. Boom is killing it right now. So you definitely want to go check that out before you head over to the LCS this week. The TeePublic store, the directory, the classifieds, anything and everything that is the ODPH can be found at ODPHpodcast.com. And always remember on social media, use the hashtag ODPHpod. Kicking off this edition of the show, Pat, can you believe that we're almost at the end of season 1?
Yeah, it is hard to believe just because, while Ms. Marvel has been coming out and it has been fantastic, it was, I want to say, flying a little bit under the radar because it had the much larger plane, flying device, whatever you want to say, overhead in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising.
It was overshadowed a little bit. Not much, a little bit.
A little bit, but obviously when Obi-Wan came out, that took a lot of the pop culture audience away from the MCU to start.
Mm-hmm.
But Ms. Marvel, the latest entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe on Disney Plus, is almost at its completion and has been such a refreshing surprise.
Yeah.
Definitely a cool vibe to it. Definitely an all-ages show that you should be watching. I think it's done very, very, very well. Iman Vellani is playing the title character, Kamala Khan, and her journey into becoming a superhero has been very different than the comics.
Yes.
But it's still packing all the emotional points that you can connect with this character who's become one of the fastest rising stars of all of Marvel Comics.
And it's an origin story that feels different, in terms of the formula that has been used, since Iron Man came out or maybe even further back, where it's an origin story, but it doesn't feel so cookie cutter with how they present it and how things move along.
Yes, absolutely. So that being said, it's very odd to say we're almost at the end already.
Yeah.
But season 1 is only 6 episodes long, and there is a lot going on with this show, so we're going to give you our spoiler-free statement before we start deep diving after a countdown into episode 5. So if you're new to the ODPH, this is how we do things. We give you that spoiler-free statement, and then we give you time to pause this episode, jump back in the conversation after you've been caught up, or if you just want to stay and get the deep dive information, we say that's perfectly fine with us. We just don't want to spoil anything for anybody. So that said, Pad, give me your spoiler-free statement on episode 5 entitled Time and Again.
Thought it was a really good episode. I really dug the kind of origin story, backstory of how things had gotten to the point we were at. I've got to say, I did have to remind myself several times throughout the episode that this wasn't the season finale, because just the way they were presenting it and the way it was kind of developing and unfolding as you watched felt like a season finale because it was wrapping up plot lines. Felt like it was setting stuff up for season 2, but for what it was a very good episode.
I thought it was a solid episode. I did like the cool twist of where they went to explain Kamala's history with the Bango.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that now you have a further understanding of what her powers are all about. And I agree with you, this did feel like the season finale.
Yeah.
This almost had, in the sense of Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead, where you have these big penultimate episodes.
Yeah.
That you're like, okay, where are we going from here?
Mm-hmm.
I had that same vibe with this episode of Ms. Marvel. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Just it was a weird choice.
But it's kind of an odd choice in the sense of they left it with such a moment, and how they set up for the finale, I'll be honest, I don't know if I'm going to be that excited for it, in the sense of if it's where I think it's going, I almost want to say it kind of feels like a semi-letdown.
Okay.
But that being said, the spoiler-free talk is done. We give you that countdown, and it's game on. So in 3, 2, 1, Pad, what did you really think?
Like I said, I thought it was a good episode. You know, I enjoyed the backstory because, like I said, I don't know all that much about the character outside of, you know, the recent video game that came out. You know, so learning a little bit about how they're portraying her and presenting her in this story was cool to see. You know, and it was nice to see those heartfelt moments. But like I said, it's just, you hit this point, and it just felt like they were doing the season finale. That just, they were wrapping things up. You know, we'll get to it later, but the whole scene with the mother and the grandmother and the whole thing back in New York, and it was just like, I'm like, all right, this feels like they're finishing things off, but I know there's one more episode.
I did like how they did explain Kamala's family history, with starting with India and then going to Pakistan. They've really done an excellent job about bringing her family's legacy to life.
Right, and I feel like that was one they had to do just because, unlike other, you know, superheroes, superheroines, you can kind of stretch that out over multiple seasons for other heroes. I feel like for this one it wouldn't quite work, just given the story they're doing.
I agree.
So I'm glad they wrapped it up.
I am very glad they did too. And this was a very solid episode. Gave me a little more clarity about the direction we're going with, because if you've read the comics, you know this is a completely different origin. So you kind of have to have a little more details to fully understand the motivations of the character. I thought they did that very well here with this episode. But once we got to the quote-unquote ending battle, the cliffhanger going to the next week, I'm just kind of like, I'm sorry. As a fan of the comics and somebody that's read Damage Control,
right?
How are they the big bads?
Well, and that's the thing I just can't wrap my head around, is because they've been there a couple of times. You know, they haven't been the clear and present threat throughout the season. You know, kind of like when I think back to the folks with Falcon Winter Soldier, you know, that whole organization. You know, they've been there, but not consistently. And I'll be honest, up until that final scene, you know, right before the end of the episode, I legitimately forgot they were a thing, because it had been a couple of episodes since we really saw them. You know, and the drone showed up, and I went, "Who the fuck?" And I legitimately went, "Who the fuck is that?" Like, I'm like, maybe Wilson Fisk, maybe like AIM, maybe some like random thing that's got it out for him. And then I had to rewind the episode like 20, 30 seconds, because I was like, oh wait, I think they said who it is. And they said Damage Control. I'm like, oh, that's right, they're a thing. Yeah,
it's just weird to me to see them be what is perceived to be the big bad this year. Because obviously we've had this great journey of Kamala finding the bracelet, which gives her power, the bangle. And this is how they're kind of offsetting the Inhuman Mist from the comics.
Yeah.
And you're seeing her literally grow up as a hero before your eyes and getting thrusted into this world that she's always been a fan of, but now she is a member of, you know, whether she wanted to be or not. And how her journey has now literally taken her around the world, from New York to Pakistan, or New Jersey to Pakistan.
New Jersey to Pakistan, yeah.
And now she is back in time in a very cool sequence. I will say this, because when the clandestine, who has been chasing after the bangle to find the way to break the Veil of Noor to get back to their dimension, finally catch up with her, and Najma, who is the head of the clandestine, stabs the bracelet, and thus causing this weird time effect ripple where Kamala goes back to 1942.
Yep.
And thus the train sequence that she's been having dreams along with her grandmother is now coming to life. And she's in this weird state where she's reliving the memory.
Well, I don't know if she's actually there, you know, like she ends up showing up there. Obviously, we saw the last episode. But the way the episode unfurls is that, you know, we start seeing some of the past and what had led up to the moment on the train. But it's not like a Harry Potter or like a movie trope thing where, like, you see the main character, but nobody in the scene can see them. And it's like they're out of time and they're not really there. So maybe she's seeing all this in her head. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of a little confusing to see when she reappears, because you have to really pay attention to where everything is going. Because we see her at the initial dream sequence. Then we kind of go back to 1942 India. And this is when we finally see Kamala's great-grandmother.
Yeah, I had to do a little family tree thing myself because I'm like, all right, wait, so that's her. We've seen her mom, grandma. Okay, great-grandmother.
Yeah, Mewish Hyatt is playing Aisha, who is her great-grandmother, and that is the original possessor of said bangle of power.
Well, it's the furthest back that we've seen.
Correct. So thus you're seeing that she is on the run, and she does wind up kind of hiding out with some generosity from Hassan, who is played by Fawad Khan. And you see their quick love story of that he brings her in. Obviously, he's being a man, a voice of the people. And, obviously, 1-1 happens. You see they finally are married and are having a child on. So you're seeing like a very nice sequence, unfolding here.
Well, and that's the one thing I like they did with the episode was they opened with like the newsreel, like the 1940s style of news you used to see, which I thought set up the scene and the situation perfectly because I remember learning about that period of history in school. Gotta admit, I was a little rusty on some of the details, and I'm sitting there going, wait, isn't this around the time of Gandhi? And then they show Gandhi's prayer. I'm like, okay, I gotcha. But that was wonderfully set up, and that kind of like explained everything and set up everything. Like, okay, why is everyone running across the country and panicking and all this craziness going on? Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yes, because you're seeing that obviously Aisha and her family are now trying to escape India and go to Pakistan.
Well, what will become Pakistan? I think it's like a province, but it's not officially a state yet.
Correct. So during this point, though, Najma from the clandestine shows up and is basically saying,
"Hey, we've been looking for you.
We've been trying to find you.
We thought you were dead."
Yeah. So you still have the bangle, right?
Ah, great. Let's go start our plan.
Yes, so we can finally go home. And it's one of the situations that you now have Aisha, who is completely happy with her new life, that she doesn't want to go home.
It's like a good version of Omni-Man.
Yeah, well put, Pat. Well put. So you're seeing that she's now making those plans to have her family escape. But like Najma and the rest of the clandestine have been doing, they've been able to track her down. So you do see, I will say, a very cool visual sequence of everybody trying to board the trains to escape to what's going to become Pakistan.
Yep.
It's a very intense visuals.
Oh, yeah.
Like I have to say. So, like, kudos to the cinematography for this episode because that just really popped off of just, like, how dramatic that feeling is, so especially for people that are trying to escape of what is going on in their side, in India to go to Pakistan.
Yeah.
So you're definitely getting that emotional impact from that. And then during this very intense scene where you're just seeing the sea of humanity trying to board trains and get out, you do see that Najma has now tracked down Aisha.
Again.
Yes. And she wants to get the bangle, but the bangle has now been given to her daughter, Sana, who is Kamala's grandmother.
Yep.
But obviously at this point, she is only 5 years old, I believe.
Give or take.
Yes.
A half a year, months, days, however it is, yeah.
So Aisha does a separation from her. And you see the Najma and her have this kind of standoff while Hassan and Sana are trying to get to the train, and Sana gets separated.
In this sea of humanity.
Yeah, so this is absolutely wild to see going on. And Aisha does get stabbed by Najma.
Yeah.
Because she's like, listen, if you're not going to help us, we're going to get this bracelet back one way or another. And she does get stabbed, and you see her that she's trying to do as much as she can to guide Hassan and to Sana to get on the train.
Yeah.
And then this is where things just get a little crazy because now Kamala is now involved.
Right. This is where we see her come through out of the time portal or whatever it is.
Yeah. So you see that she is now talking with her great-grandmother to save her grandmother.
Yeah, because she thought she was sent back in time to save the great-grandmother.
Yes, but no, this is not. This is the reason you're coming back to save your own grandmother.
And I think the great-grandmother was hallucinating, thinking she was seeing something or somebody she was familiar with, because it wasn't one of those, oh, who are you? You look familiar. Like she recognized her, but like in the throes of near death, she was hallucinating. It was like, no, you need to go help Sana.
Yeah, Aisha and Kamala are really trying to make what they can do, and you do see that this is where Aisha uses like the last of her powers that she has, because you remember she is a member of the clandestine.
Yep.
To do this star kind of homing device to get to Sana. And this is a very cool thing to see, but you do see that Kamala realizes what's going on, and she does wind up connecting Sana back to Hassan, and as they go off to Pakistan, everybody's saved. So thus, suddenly, she's thrusted back to the present.
Yep.
Albeit, though, she does have a little souvenir, and we'll get to that at the end of this. And now that she's there, she realizes what is the true factor with the Veil of Nor that the clandestine has been trying to open. Pat, what's going on with that?
Well, she shows up, shit kicks off, and the veil gets opened or partially opened, and then somebody else who's there working with the clandestine approaches it. And this is where I thought they were going to start bringing in, the Terrigen Mist type thing, because that's kind of what it reminded me
Yeah,
of.
it did.
That person approaches the veil and then turns into stone and then disintegrates, kind of like something out of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's a wild scenario to see. So at this point, you see Kamala is trying to talk some sense into Najma, who is now just said, well, Cameron is not here, because Kamala is like trying to talk reason of like, what are you doing? You need to stop this.
This is the mistake that was made all those years ago. Why are you repeating it?
Yeah. And at this point, it's a sudden change of heart by Najma, which I was very surprised to see, especially with how we've now seen over the decades how hell-bent and high water she was to go back home and break the veil. So now it's a situation where she decides, no, you're right. I'm going to take care of this, and I'm going to do it by sacrificing myself, which she does a power transfer to Cameron, which is a little crazy too.
Yeah.
Because I was saying, the situation I had is like, did you give him enough power to survive? But now you used all the power which was contained in yourself to just go up there, and when you disintegrated, that's what was enough to be shutting the veil.
I think it was that one where it's like she gave him like 95 or 99% of it, and what she kept was just enough to like do what she needed to do, and then the end result happened.
Yeah, so it is crazy to see. But after this happens, we do see that Kamala's grandmother and mother have now found her because, well, they used the powers of technology.
Yeah, her mother was worried about her, had been calling for her for Lord knows how long. And then one of the family members, might have been the grandmother, I forget, made the comment, oh, you need to put a tracking device in her lake, and I forget the name she mentioned. And the mother goes, well, that's fine, but that name you mentioned is a dog, and, it's not exactly doable where we live. But and the mother does look back and go, that's not saying I wouldn't do it if the opportunity wasn't there, So they track her down, and after because there's a bunch of people living where they're having this fight in the Veil is, and Kamala helps get them out of there. And then she goes to shut the portal, and you just hear Kamala, and you just go, uh-oh. Turn around, and there's Mom and Grandma.
Yeah, so it's a very cool sequence to see her mother there, and just the reaction they have.
Oh, so you're the light hero everyone's been talking about?
Yeah, so it's a very cool sequence to see played out, and obviously this is just a fun moment that we've seen this entire season.
Yeah.
Zenobia Shoff, who plays Moonbia, Kamala's mom, is definitely just embracing this whole new side of her daughter now, and
she's taking it a lot better than I thought she would.
Yes,
considering this is the girl, this is the woman who basically went like all sleeping, or went all like Rapunzel, lock her in a tower, type of thing, when she wouldn't wear the costume she made for her to go to Avengers Con.
Yes.
To go on the flip side of like, hey, we're halfway around the world. I just found my daughter fighting this like group of folks who can kick any average person's backside. And I'm all right with it. You know what? This is normal. I'm okay with this.
Yes, and as you see, Sana, who is played by Samia Ahmad, who was fantastic in this role too.
I've been telling you this for years.
Yeah, so they start having a heart-to-heart, and they're going through, obviously, the memories of Aisha, which I apologize if I mispronounced the name earlier in this segment. But now you're seeing that whole family bond come together, and Kamala is now seeing about how her mom was growing up too.
Yeah.
And it's this cool, flip of the mirror, so to speak.
Yeah.
That now her mother realizes, what she's been doing, and now she didn't want to let her go and grow up. And Kamala is saying, well, this is why I've been doing what I've done. So now there's finally that acceptance of, you're a superhero. We're going to make this happen.
Mm-hmm. And I love the interaction, like the grandmother showing the photos of her mom when she was a kid, or like her age. And the grandmother's telling the story. Oh, she left when she was 17 to go chase the star. What was his name? Bruce Springsteen? And the mom looks at her and goes, no, his name was Bon Jovi. And Kamala goes, wait, really? Why did you never tell me this? And the mother just looks at her and goes, because you never asked.
Yes. No, that was just such a cool moment, too, as you see the family bonding going on. And that's something that's really been a very big part of this show for 5 episodes now, going into 6. The family dynamic of Kamala has been something very entertaining to watch, and I love seeing how the interactions going on. But that's where their story ends for this episode. So you think, okay, this is like a perfect way to end the show. No, we get this bonus scene, so to speak. I mean, that's how it felt to me.
Yeah.
Where you see that Cameron, who has been left behind by the clandestine and Najma,
got out of the damage control holding.
Yep. And is now basically became roommates with Bruno, Kamala's best friend.
Well, he showed up to talk to Bruno just because he knows Bruno's friends with Kamala. He knows what Kamala's going on. So he's like, all right, 1 and 1 together. He knows what's going on. In logic, I think he says it in the episode. He's like, you're the only one I could think of that could understand any of this.
Yeah, so it's a weird scenario, too, because there's such different in personality. Where Bruno is the super geek and Cameron is the cool kid at school. And you're seeing, obviously, he couldn't even remember his name was Bruno. He kept saying Brian.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that was just a fun dynamic. But as they're basically trying to figure out what to do next, you do see a drone is flying by the window.
Which, like I said, forgot damage control was involved. And I went, oh, who is this? Is this maybe Wilson Fisk? Is this AIM? And then they said damage control. I'm like, oh, right, they're a thing.
Yeah, so this was very surprising to see. But you see the drone show up and Cameron unleashes a blast to destroy the drone. But once that happens, they got to get running because now they have been discovered. And that's how the episode ends. It's a weird thing to happen because obviously when they destroy it underneath where Bruno's apartment is, it blows up. Mm-hmm. So things are just kind of crazy. So now they're running out of there trying to figure out what to do next. And now they're on the run because damage control has tracked them down. Statements I never thought I'd be saying in 2022. Damage control is chasing after somebody.
Yeah.
It's a weird dynamic. But this show has definitely clicked on all cylinders. It definitely has the heart to really capture the audience and really showcase one of the young superheroes of the Marvel Comics universe in such a great light that you can't help but really root for this character to move on and do something bigger, too. I know we got another season coming, I would assume.
You have to figure.
Because, obviously, however they're going to leave this off is going to set up for a future appearance in either the Marvels, which I think is the safest lock we can say, the Captain Marvel sequel, or we might see an appearance on another Disney Plus show to begin with. It is possible that we might see kind of a merging of the Champions and the Young Avengers if they really wanted to go that route for whatever teen hero project they're working on, because the seeds have been planted all throughout the movies and the TV shows. Mm-hmm. But for this episode, though, I thought it was very good. I thought Aisha's story was very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And gave some depth that was much needed for Kamala to grow as a character. That now everything somewhat makes sense. We still don't have a full origin about the bangle. Will she get a second one? And is it actually going to be tying into the Kree universe, which I still think is going to happen.
See, I thought she was going to get the second bangle out of the past. You know, I was like, oh, there's 2 bangles. And then I'm like, wait, no, that's the same bangle she's wearing. Time travel issues.
Yeah, so however they decided to play that off is interesting, but I thought it was a lot of strong character work here. Telling that backstory of Aisha was really huge, and it's something that we need to see moving forward from Kamala is now how is she going to come back and save the day, and is it going to set up a weird frenemy thing with Cameron, because obviously she's connected with Kareem, the Red Dagger.
It's going to take a little bit because flight from Pakistan to New Jersey ain't exactly short.
Right. But how is this all going to shape up that now that the building has been basically destroyed underneath Bruno.
Yeah.
They're now on the run.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? I mean,
high school.
You have to think
probably.
You have to think they're going to do something like that, but at the same
time, they'll probably end up at the high school.
Yeah, but it's like, is that really going to play out to where Kamala is going to make the save, and then is this where we see maybe a Nick Fury in the season finale?
She's going to end up someplace where like she's going to finally get that public exposure, because up to this point it's been kind of like I'm thinking like the early Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies where it's like kind of quick glimpses and like people have seen him, but like nobody's gotten a full look at him. Mm-hmm. You know, in this case with her, I think it'll end up someplace where like she's having a fight with damage control or one of the drones or something, and like people are finally like able to see her full outfit, taking pictures and the whole 9.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun episode to definitely check out. Final thoughts on this before we wrap up, Had?
Thought it was a good episode. Kind of confused with the way the pacing went and just kind of making it kind of out to be the season finale when it wasn't. But I'm excited for the finale and to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where we're going. It's kind of interesting, though, because this did really feel like the season finale. So now that we have a bonus episode, so to speak, I'm interested to see how they're going to tie up all the loose ends. And I think this is going to set up for a cameo from somebody. Safe money would be the one only Carol Danvers herself, Captain Marvel.
Maybe. Last we knew she was off-world, so...
Right, but we could see a Nick Fury, though. That might be even a safer bet.
Or a Monica. You could see Monica Rambeau, maybe.
This is true. I mean...
Monica Rambeau makes more sense to me than Carol, just because, like I said, the last we saw Carol was she was going off... I'm trying to remember where she went after Endgame. We don't know where she went.
No, she took off into space.
That's what it was, yeah.
She still had to do more business out there.
Yeah, she's off in space. Monica Rambeau would make more sense.
I could definitely see that happening, too. It just depends on where they want to go to set up the Marvels movie. That we don't know anything about other than it's getting filmed.
Right.
So it's going to be a great thing to see how this plays out. I'm super excited to see the direction, to see how they can cap it off. Because, like I say, this should have been the season finale, in my opinion. So if we're going to get a bonus episode, I just don't want it to be filler. I don't want it to be a letdown. Like, that's where I'm kind of going with this. I'm excited for it because the show has pulled off everything thus far that I've been looking for from it. I just hope it doesn't end with a flat note. That's just my opinion on that. But ODPH Society, we gave you ours, and we want to hear yours. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. What is your thoughts about Episode 5 entitled Time and Again, Miss Marvel, Season 1, Disney+. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Ooh, I've been dying to try this place.
Oh my god, me too. I've heard such good things about it.
Welcome to the Crime Diner. I'm Cindy. I'll be cooking for you this evening. Here are your menus.
Oh, what are you thinking about getting?
I don't know, murder with a side of cannibalism? What about you?
Ooh, that sounds good. I'm torn between historical mayhem and the social injustice, maybe?
Oh.
I just want to let you know that each episode comes with dinner, dessert, and a specialty drink chosen by yours truly.
Wine Dine and Storytime has had a makeover, and we invite you to slide into the booth with us at the Crime Diner, where each week we will discuss a crime over dinner, drinks, and dessert. See you there!
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and it's time to recap Season 3 of The Umbrella Academy.
Hell yeah.
Now, there's been a lot of shows going on, so this might have fallen off the radar for some. Because obviously The Boys season finale is this week.
Yep.
Stranger Things has been dominating everything as the top winner of the streaming services right now. But Umbrella Academy, since it debuted last week, it came out with a lot of fanfare, a lot of positive reaction. We got a chance to finally sit there and break it all down, so we're going to be recapping the season that was, give you our thoughts about the Dark Horse comic that came out in 2007, has had a couple books come out since.
Yeah.
Obviously, we knew the first one was Apocalypse Suite. The second one is Dallas. The third one is Hotel Oblivion, done by Jared Way from My Chemical Romance and Gabriel Bay. So the series has definitely been a lot better than the comics, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I know the first run, Apocalypse Suite, I thought was very good for comic-wise. I thought the show's first season was very strong. The second is where I think it kind of differs in my opinion about this. I thought Dallas was very confusing as a comic. I was not a super big fan of this.
Sure.
The show I thought was much better about it, and where we last saw our misguided teen heroes who are now grown up and basically a more damaged version of the X-Men that
pretty much
anybody could possibly connect with. It has now been a lot of time travel, a lot of messiness, and a lot of trying to figure out where do we go from here?
Well, and we also find out in one of the episodes during the season that the events, and I want to say it's like episode maybe 3 or 4, I forget which one. It's in the first third or first half of the season. We find out that the events of season 1 and season 2 and everything up to that point have been over the course of like 20 days.
Yeah.
Which is fucking insanity.
It's crazy, but something about this comic, which, like I say, if you're a fan of Doom Patrol, this might be more up your alley than most. This definitely has a very cool, unique vibe to it. The show is very good, and that's why we are going to take the time to break down Season 3 of The Umbrella Academy. So we're going to do it like we always do it, spoiler-free statement, then let's go deep diving, Pad. So give us your spoiler-free statement.
Really enjoyed the season. It was a little different than the last two, but I still enjoyed it, and I was still along for the ride. A lot of fantastic performances from a lot of folks on the show. Love the story, and good Lord, Season 4 should be very interesting.
I thought this was a very strong season. I thought it really picked up towards the end. it was confusing to see where we were going to go, but I thought, like you touched upon, there was a lot of strong performances, especially Tom Hopper this season as Luthor. Definitely really stepped up, and obviously Aidan Gallagher, who we know as number 5.
Yep.
Always brings something to
Always
the show.
top notch.
Always bringing that. And to see just where this show went, definitely had a lot of interesting twists and turns, and pretty much read like how I thought it was going to do, and then obviously threw some big curveballs. That's something that this show is known about. But it still is a great watch. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely take some time to binge on Netflix. But now let's get into that deep spoiler talk. So that being said, in 3, 2, 1, Pad, talk to me.
Thought it was a really great season. You know, everything from the first episode and the fucking hilarious dance number sequence, you know, in the first episode, you know, really enjoyed that. The plot twists and kind of figuring out, all right, where are we going? What's the mystery? Like, just the mystery and the intrigue and the plot twists, you know, around every corner where you thought you had things figured out, and then they'd round a corner and be like, oh, hey, surprise. You know, that's not what's actually going on. Here's a little bit more clue to going on. You know, it was a fun ride that I would absolutely get on again.
This series definitely really picked up steam towards the latter half. The beginning, it was a little confusing because obviously where we've seen our favorite family of heroes with Victor Hargraves, played by Elliot Page, who might be the most powerful member of the family.
Could be.
Luther Hargraves, played by Tom Hopper, who is the super strong, dare I say, kind of a hybrid of animal DNA, too.
Yeah.
Because he does appear that in the comics is a lot different version, but he's a super strong member.
Yep.
And then we see Diego Hargraves, played by David Castaneda, who is more like the Batman of the group, so to speak.
Kind of, just without all the smart detective work.
Right, because we definitely see that he can do a lot of crazy things, like with his knives, and he does have that aura around him as well.
Yeah.
Allison Hargraves, who's played by Emmy Raver-Leppin, who... yeah, we'll get into her character this year, too, who can do mind control when she says, I heard a rumor.
Or not, as we find out later.
Yeah, so it definitely kind of really throws some curveballs in there. Klaus Hargraves, probably the most popular character of the show, played by Robert Sheehan.
Fantastic.
Yeah, who's always great because he is just outrageous in every action he takes, and he can communicate with the dead. Mm-hmm. And obviously, we do know that with the fallen brother of the group, Ben Hargraves, who's played by Justin Min. Min, I apologize for that. We do see that he's more like the Kraken, who definitely can use his tentacles out, and we knew that in the previous seasons that he died in a mission too.
There was an incident that they just call it the Jennifer incident.
Yes. So we do know that obviously he was not with them as they've been going on this crazy journey. And last but certainly not least, 5 Hargraves, played by Aidan Gallagher, who many are saying will be Damian Wayne before it's all said and done in the DC universe. I'd be completely fine with it. The man who does not age but can teleport through time and is the smartest man in the room, so to speak. Outside of the Sir Reginald Hargraves, played by Colm Foray, who definitely is your worst version of Professor Xavier that you could ever imagine.
Should definitely win a few worst parent awards.
Because obviously what happens in the story is there is random births throughout the world. And these births give off a superhero prodigy. And Hargraves tried recruiting them all.
I want to adopt you all.
Yeah, to make into his own superhero team. And his methods of tough love, to put it mildly, were out of damn control.
Yeah, they were.
And definitely when his death happens in the first season, the family who has been separated comes back together to try figuring out what happened. And it goes on a wild escapade from there where you're seeing that Victor was going to be responsible for the end of the world due to reasons outside of his control. And then they wind up going back to the time of Dallas and the JFK assassination. And how they finally get back home is a very crazy scenario, too. But now that they're back home, well, they realize that the timeline has been reset, so to speak.
Kind of. Or they branched off into another timeline because they show up at home. Finally, we're back home. Everything's back to normal. Should be good to go. Who the fuck are these guys?
Yes.
And they come to find out, oh, we're in somebody else's house, but it's our house. And it's this group called the Sparrow Academy. What the hell?
Yes. So now they're back in the Sparrow Academy, and you see Reginald Hargraves is now said, no, I have 7 other children, And he basically has said, I don't know who you are, and just denying any acknowledgement of it. It kicks off, though, defending the house as only they can to the sounds of Footloose.
Footloose by Kenny Loggins.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Fantastic opening sequence, as you see. And now you see the battle for the house. The Sparrows win.
Yeah.
Because the Sparrows are just a completely well-oiled machine.
They're like a mix of the Seven and then the Avengers.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of like the Seven in that they're marketed everywhere, but then they're also not as shitty, so they're kind of like the Avengers.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, the Umbrella Academy that we know takes off. Mm-hmm. And they wind up setting up shop at the Hotel Obsidian. Mm-hmm. And this is where things start getting a little bit interesting.
Yeah, because for a good couple episodes, maybe 1, 2, 3 episodes, they're like, all right, hey, is what it is. Why don't we just go and live our lives? And I think for a portion of one episode, they do split off and go off and do their own separate things, despite the protests of some.
Yes. And as you see, the other members of the Sparrow Academy, who is now being led by Ben Hargraves, and is completely the opposite of the original Ben.
Real jerk.
Yes, is basically saying we need to take these guys out one way or another. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of there's a lot of back and forth going on between this group. And you see that Victor is trying to make deals for the briefcase, because the time-traveling briefcase has been synonymous with the Umbrella Academy.
Yep.
Is still at their former residence.
Yep.
And as they're trying to do this, well, there's other factors that are going on. And you see that obviously that Diego's ex-girlfriend, Lila, who has just been absolutely nothing but trouble since the moment she came on the show.
Real thorn in the side.
Oh, my God, yeah. But she is great. Rutu Araya plays her, and she is absolutely scene-stealing every time she's in. She basically is a mimic.
Yep.
And she has decided upon herself, well, I'm going to kind of use this to my own advantage. I'm going to do what I can do here. And obviously coming back in their lives is never good. So it's also like a standoff of like there's something going on here that is going to end the world too, that everybody's now coming together.
Yeah, because they're just kind of living their lives and living at the hotel. But then things start going weird. Like I think at one point 5 noticed like they're sitting in the lobby, kind of where near the food is. And there's a fish tank, on one of the tables or something. And in it, he was looking at it, there are 3 lobsters in it. And there's this energy pulse that goes off, and it seems kind of harmless. You can't really tell anything's wrong. But then Fives looks back at the fish tank and he goes, weren't there 3 lobsters in there just a minute ago? And somebody else, I can't remember if it was Diego or Klaus, somebody else in the family was like, oh, they probably took them out and went to go cook them. Just kind of like, yeah, whatever. They're no big deal.
Yeah, so obviously things are happening going on, and one big noticeable change is Grace Hargraves, played by Jordan Robbins, who is the mother to the family, but is a robot. Well, now is kind of having some ulterior motives, because in the basement of the academy, there is a time anomaly that is now just wiping out random people and moments in this new world they're in.
It's going off at like random intervals, but I think the intervals are getting quicker. And she's the first person to discover it in the basement, and she starts worshiping it like a deity.
Yeah,
that, like I think she even calls it like God a couple of times throughout this season.
Yeah, so it's kind of a weird scenario here. One of the members of the Sparrow Academy gets disintegrated.
Their number 1, Marcus. Yeah.
Yes. So now Ben is thinking, well, these imposters have something to do with it.
Yeah, because they were just at the house. They had the fight. The 2 families kind of got split up throughout the house. Were fighting throughout the house, and now Marcus is missing. Well, clearly this group that I don't like must have something to do with it.
Yes. So they wind up kidnapping Luthor. They're trying to get information out of him.
And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. No, we don't have him. No, we haven't seen him.
Yes. And then he winds up connecting with their number 5, Sloan. Mm-hmm. So there is a weird love interest going on here. But
Dude fell head over heels.
Yeah. But Pat, there's only one way to describe it. Reasons. So while this is going on too, I thought the Umbrella Academy did something very cool here.
Yeah.
And this is when Victor shows up as Victor on the show, because obviously since the time of filming, Ellen Page came out as transgender and is now Elliot Page.
Yep, and so for the first 2 seasons, the character was known as Vanya, and once the news came out about, Elliot Page being Elliot Page, everyone kind of wondered, are you going to address this? How are you going to handle this? And they said, we're going to change the character to fit with Elliot Page, and we'll explain it in the show. And I got to say, for the way they did it in the show, perfect.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't have done it any better. The family was very accepting. And it could not have been done any perfect.
Yeah, because Victor comes in, they're talking like, "Hey, what's with the new haircut?" Oh, they say Vanya. She's like, Victor, and I think it was Diego goes, "What?"
Yeah,
no, that's who I am. That's who I've always been, Victor. And Victor goes into this whole little monologue about why he did it and this and that, and they just kind of sit there, they process it, and they go, "Okay,
yeah." Couldn't have done it any more perfect. So kudos to the writing team and the cast about this as well, too.
Yeah.
So while this is happening, Allison, our least favorite member of the team,
God damn,
obviously has got a lot of baggage going on from when she was in Dallas.
Right, yeah, because she was in the southern part of the United States in the 1960s, which for those of you who aren't United States residents, a little bit of a rough time if you were of African-American descent. You can certainly find documentaries about it online. So she went through the trauma of that, but she did find a partner, married him, had a daughter, and now being here in the present time, she wants to find him. And she goes off and tries to find him and ends up going into some random person's house because that's where, that's where she thinks they are. And it's not anyone to do with, her family, and ends up scaring the family that lives there into the point where they're ready to call the cops, and she cannot handle it.
No, she can't. And this is where it kind of just really sends her on a really dark
tailspin. Yeah.
Yeah. To put it mildly, like her journey now, she becomes very violent, very out of control because she's filled with rage of obviously losing her family that she's become so close with.
I mean, let's put it this way: she assaults Luther at one point.
Yes,
during the season. And I understand, the trauma and the emotion of losing her family and something she wanted, but God damn, I think she went too far.
Oh yeah, she definitely did. And as you start seeing that she starts losing her grip on reality, and as we see more of this anomaly forming, you're seeing that it's just spiraling more things out of control.
She she starts snapping at a couple of the family members, but then she just starts going off on everybody. That she starts yelling at Luther even. That he's just like, why are you yelling at me?
Yes. So now it's a situation where the team is still trying to figure out what's going on with the briefcase. They can't get their hands on it. They're now getting tracked down by a mysterious gentleman named Lester, who knows a little bit more about the situation than anybody's letting on.
Yeah.
And this is a situation that they wind up figuring out, okay, with the anomaly going on, we have to find a way to stop it.
Yep.
And during this time, too, there is a very big curveball that is thrown to everybody with Diego. Because apparently Diego and Lila have a son.
Yep.
And that son is not... how do we say?
He's a pyromaniac for one. Let's just say that. Because he sees Molotov cocktails and goes, ooh, fun.
Yeah, he's a future supervillain in training.
Yeah, he is.
And Diego is trying to do his best parenting job, but that's not really happening because Lila keeps fighting with Five. And Five is basically trying to be...
having none of it.
He's not having none of it because he realizes, okay, this isn't going to work.
The kid at one point sets a banner drape-looking thing they've got on one of the columns on fire. Impales Klaus, and that's just the ones I can remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. So while this is all going on, there's this weird, uneasy alliance going on with Five and Lila too, which does happen from time to time with her as a character. But like I say, she is always really stealing scenes left and right from here.
Yeah, well, and they're kind of like, all right, we got to kind of work together just because we're the only two who understand time travel, having both worked for the commission, and they end up trying to go back to the commission, and then they get back to the commission. And they end up finding future Fives.
Yes.
Which is a whole mess. Time travel, they usually advise not doing that.
Right, exactly. Because the more it's progressing on, the more you're finding about how things are just going more and more out of control. Too. I mean, meanwhile, while this is going on, too, you're seeing that Luther and Sloan are getting together more and more.
Yep.
And the bond is happening there that's now causing friction with the other teams involved. And then you do see that probably one of the more wilder scenes of this season was when Stan, the son of Diego and Lila,
Yep.
kills Klaus.
Yeah.
After Klaus has been working with Reginald, too, about finding out the truth
Yep.
of what's going on in his own unique way.
Well, yeah, because they start finding out what's going on, and they discover the time anomaly, which they call the Kugelblitz, which is a grandfather paradox, and there's a great informational, work video that they show to explain that, which that was cool. So they then, all right, so we must be the ones who caused it because we're not supposed to be here. Well, why are we not supposed to be here? Klaus then remembers or had found a thing telling him where his mother was. So he goes off to find his mother, and come to find out his mother had died. Well, then they find out all of their mothers have died. So and he's working. Then he starts working with Reginald to like, all right, hey, why don't we get your powers under control and all this stuff? It's a wild ride.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely crazy. And then seeing how Klaus now goes through the afterlife. And you find out that
150,000 times.
Yeah, you see that his power is not exactly he can see the dead because he's immortal.
Yep.
And that is just awesome.
Well, yeah, because what is it? The kid, Stanley, lights the lobby banner on fire, and so he gets caught. Oh, what did I do? The whole kid thing. And he goes, well, hey, you're gonna have to work to fix this. Here's a list of rooms he wants you to clean. I want you to go clean them, and your Uncle Klaus is going to help you. And Klaus is like, why do I got to help him? Because I'm busy. And they go off cleaning, I think it ended up being called the Polar Bear Suite, is what it was called. So they're in there cleaning that, and Klaus is being Klaus and loafing about, and they're talking and this and that. All the meanwhile, Stanley sees a harpoon gun.
Yeah.
Because reasons. And he starts playing around with it like it's some sort of Nerf gun, and his finger goes near the trigger, pulls the trigger, impales Klaus. Klaus drops dead.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, what the hell?
And like I say, this is how he got to find out he's immortal. Like, it's a wild scenario.
Which apparently he'd been dying before, he just didn't realize it.
Well, that's what I said. Like, his power isn't to connect with the dead. It's just he's immortal, and that's how he can see them. And he goes on his own little different wild journey. Meanwhile, Stan is trying to basically take care of the body himself. Like I said, future supervillain in training.
Well, so he's walking through the hotel with like acid, or I forget what it was. It was like some sort of chemical that, like, I think they used it in Breaking Bad, in like the early season of Breaking Bad. It was like a similar type of thing. And Diego's like, sees him walking, and he calls him, and Stanley just keeps going. And Diego catches up to him, and he goes, "What do you have? What are you holding? Why do you have this?"
Yeah, it's a funny sequence to go on. But then when Klaus starts moving again a little bit, they realize, oh well, we don't have to get rid of the body. So, we're just going to ignore this and go from here. Meanwhile, you do see that there is a little more secret going on, too, with one of the more popular characters of the show, and that is Pogo.
Yep.
The, how would you describe him, Pat?
I'd say he's a talking monkey.
Yes. Who is the butler, who is the only person in that whole household that cares about anybody that is of a parental figure. We got to put that out there. And we do see that obviously Five tracks him down when he figures out the tattoo that he has belongs to a biker gang.
Yep.
That Five basically has to go say, okay, what's the whole story here? And you get the whole backstory about how Reginald just was out of control and
He was a real jerk.
Yeah, and he fires Pogo because Pogo is telling him to go easy on him because you see this weird Cobra Kai-esque training session.
Yeah.
Where no mercy.
Yeah. There's nobody's gonna let you tap out in the real world. So if you die here, you die here.
Yeah. So it is kind of crazy to see what is going on here. And then you do see that Pogo is fired because he does know a little information about a secret project Reginald has called Project Oblivion, which is pretty much where we are now with this anomaly that keeps disappearing more and more of the universe.
Yeah, and there's even a couple of sequences in one of the episodes where the news has started picking up on it. That, like, you see local news broadcasts talking about like thousands and thousands of people disappearing, and nobody has any idea where they are. They're leaving no trace, and they have no clue where they are.
Yeah. So it is a very, very interesting sequence of events going on here. And as we start getting into more of the information about what Reginald is really behind, you're starting to see more people are trying to come after the group. You see Diego loses 2 fingers in a fight.
Yeah, because they end up going through. Well, they what is it? They end up. Diego goes up into the Polar Bear Suite with Stanley, and they have that whole sequence. They go back up in there, And then the kid disappears. Lila, I think, is there with them, and they're like, "We got to figure out." Or no, they think he disappeared.
Right.
They go through the door, secret doorway into this parallel dimension where it's a mirror opposite of the hotel they're in. Then that's when they meet a guardian or something. It's some dude in armor with a sword attached to a chain. It's wild. Gets his fingers cut off, comes back, and then Stanley gets Thanos snapped essentially.
Yeah. Like, it's just absolutely crazy to see how this all shapes up because it is just going in all types of different directions because of the time anomaly. So, like, if it's kind of a little confusing as you're hearing this at home, you have to really visualize this to really get in tow that this team that has been traveling through time is now the cause of time ripples, and you're seeing different events happen and unfolding because of this.
Yep.
Because the sparrows themselves are time anomalies. They're not where they should be, and this whole new timeline that they formed is really throwing curveballs off. Thus, you have this guardian who's walking around with a sword and chain attached to him and going through the hotel trying to find somebody and winds up hurting Diego, which, like I say, that will come back into play later. Because while all this is going on, you're seeing Victor is getting trained about how to handle the powers that he has. And Pat, who's training?
The one and only Harlan Cooper from Dallas in 1963. It turns out they thought they took the powers away from him. They didn't. Why?
Reasons.
Never explained that one, at least not that I ever caught. But he always, I guess he could feel some sort of connection because he has Victor's powers. He felt a connection. So that's when we find out that when our Umbrella Academy was getting ready to be born, he sensed Victor's presence and inadvertently killed all of their mothers. So that's why they shouldn't exist in this timeline, was because Harlan was the reason behind that. But then he's also now training Victor in how to use his powers because, well, he's had about 40, 50 years to work on them.
Yeah, so obviously when Victor is getting trained to stop the time anomaly, Allison is there with them, and obviously Allison is dealing with enough rage going on with losing her family.
And she hallucinates seeing both her husband and daughter there.
Yeah. And then she decides to do, well, a very bad decision.
Well, she decides to take matters into her own hands.
Yep, she kills Harlan.
Yep, because the Sparrow Academy is like trying to make a deal with them. Hey, listen, we'll make a deal with you, but the one condition of this deal is we want him dead or alive.
Yeah.
And and Allison knows there's no way he'll go in alive. So she's like, all right, I'll kill him.
Yeah, so it is absolutely bananas seeing this sequence of events happen. Because now the back and forth this season, which I guess I would say maybe was one of the slight drawbacks.
Sure.
Is you had too much of the back and forth, like we're friends, now we're not, now we're friends, now we're not, between the Umbrella Academy and the Sparrows.
Yeah.
That got to be a little confusing for me, trying to keep track of, because it was like, we're working together, but no, we're not. And it was just, when it got away from Ben being the head person involved, it definitely kind of seemed like everybody else on the Sparrows had their ulterior motives. Maybe that's just me, Pat. I don't know about you.
I felt like that too.
Yeah, because once you see Allison cutting the deal, you do see Lila's trying to take her own journey. She winds up going to when the Berlin Wall came down.
Yeah.
And
I think that was just a sequence where we saw how she got her briefcase.
Yeah, which, just goes to show like how much this show was jumping around too.
Yeah.
Which, was that scene really necessary? No, but it was a fun little thing to see too.
Yeah.
And then obviously you see that Allison is trying to come to grips with what happens. Everybody figures out, okay, what you did. Mm-hmm. And then you do see that Grace, like we said, is now convinced that she has to work for, I believe the anomaly is called the Kugelblitz. Kugelblitz, thank you.
Yeah.
And you see that she is now obviously worshiping the Blitz. Mm-hmm. And Five has to kill her.
Yeah.
Which is an emotional scene too.
Yeah.
And it's a weird scene, but it's still something that we all witness. And then you see Reginald has now taken this weird kinship to Klaus. Mm-hmm. That now all of a sudden that Klaus was explaining about his powers.
Yeah.
Reginald's all in.
Well, and Klaus starts, because Reginald in this universe or this timeline can't understand why they hate him. And then he kind of goes through each one of the family members of like, why they hate him. It's like, all right, listen, you locked me in a room full of ghosts, which terrified the shit out of me. Mm-hmm. Luther, you left on the moon for like 5 years with no reason and no call, no response. Victor, you basically drugged to the point where you couldn't use his powers, and then Five, got trapped in time, and then he's just going through the long, and he's like, do I need to keep going? He's like, no, I think you've kind of said enough.
Yeah, no, he definitely brings everything down, too. But now that everybody's on the same page about Reginald for the most part, he's obviously still manipulating everything behind the scenes.
Never believe a word this man says.
No, you can't, because obviously he has proven without a shadow of doubt that he is the true supervillain of all. And obviously we get a little more backstory about what he was doing with the Hotel Obsidian. That now he has become obsessed with this whole time anomaly thing. And he has pretty much predicted the end of the world.
Well, and we see at one point in like a super far flashback sequence, he built the damn thing, or had it, or helped pay to have it built, which is wild.
Yeah, so it's kind of a very crazy sequence.
Or if it wasn't him, maybe it was like an ancestor. It looked like it was the same actor, but whether it was the same character or maybe an ancestor, they didn't say.
No, they definitely did not. But this is where the team is figuring out, okay, what is going on, and you're seeing that more of the sparrows are disappearing because, well, the Blitz is now completely taking over their house.
It's getting larger and larger.
Yes, so the only two people that have survived out of the original sparrows is Ben and Sloane, who Luther proposes to.
Also, Christopher.
Oh, Christopher does escape too. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
but
for a while.
Well, for a while, but everything kind of really catches up to that because eventually he winds up exploding.
Yep.
Because Ypad.
Well, no, there's a reason. He tries holding the Kugelblitz inside him, which works for maybe 5-10 minutes of the show, and then it kind of backfires.
Yeah, it's a wild scenario that happens and goes on here. But then you kind of have, by this point, we're nearing the end of the season. You do have that nice send-off with Luther and Sloane's wedding. Luther asks Victor to be the best man.
Yep.
And Ben is kind of outside looking in.
Feels a little left out.
Right, because now he's got to really kind of find his way back in. And you do see that Reginald is trying to sit there and show that he's basically a good guy, and gives the blessing onto the new marriage that is going on, and nobody's really kind of buying it.
Yeah,
but you do see that
it was a weird speech.
It was. I mean,
having been to a few weddings, it was a weird speech.
It definitely was a weird speech, but as we say, the world is ending, so they're basically trying to say their final goodbyes. At this point, they've realized that they can't win.
Right.
So it's a weird scenario that they've just now, this entire time, Five has been sitting around trying to make moves to stop the Blitz. He can't do it. Nobody in the Sparrows can do it. They're all getting wiped away because Grace was helping everybody. And then Reginald is just basically playing his own game.
Yep.
Because he's responsible for all this at the end of the day. And you do see these character moments, too, where Ben is now finally accepted by the group as being the new Ben.
Well, he finally stopped being a dick and kind of let loose a little bit.
Yeah, well, he kind of had to at this stage because he lost everybody.
Yeah, he did.
So he had to. And then you see that Sloane is just basically selling, you're not the one in charge. Be a part of this family. And she tries talking him into it as well. So everybody is on board with this, pretty much except Allison because, well, she's just bitter and angry that,
she hates everyone.
She turned out to be the worst character this entire season. Without question.
Most annoying, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. That obviously we know that obviously she lost her family and such.
Yeah, which is the trauma. I get it, but this went to the extreme.
Yeah, she took it out on everybody in very, very bad ways. From the violent attacks on her own teammates to the people around. She just went completely out of control. But she's now not handling the fact that Luther, who had the puppy dog crush on her for years, moved on.
Yeah,
and she's outside looking in. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But as they're watching, by this point, the Blitz is now taking over half the city.
Fives is drunk out of his mind. God damn.
And then he does see something in the elevator, too, because then he sees Reginald making a deal with somebody.
Yeah, he sees Reginald in the polar bear suite. They're talking to somebody, but of course he's so drunk, he passes out and falls backwards into an elevator.
Yes. And then when he comes to, he does figure out what is going on with Reginald, who finally comes clean about everything. Well, the hotel is basically a secret tunnel when I hit the reset button on the universe.
Yep.
How are you feeling about that, Pat?
It was a weird plot twist, but I was like, okay. Like I figured the parallel universe came into it somehow. Didn't see that coming, but I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so this kind of makes sense, but it's a weird scenario where Reginald has kind of picked out who he wants to take with him, and the other ones are basically
their fodder.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting situation that Reginald puts this out and is like, yeah, like the people who really want to buy this will agree to this, and you do see that that's Ben, Lila, Klaus, and Allison.
Yep.
But you see that Luther, Five, Victor, Diego, and Sloane are basically We're going to stay and try fixing this.
Diego wants to hang back. Luthor and Sloane are like, hey, listen, we've only got so much time and we want to spend it together with each other. Mm-hmm. And then 5 is going off of what his future self told him right as it died, which his future self told him, don't save the world or don't stop the apocalypse or something like that. He's basically said, let this play out.
Yeah, because I thought in a weird sense when he was told that, I thought it was his way of trying to stop it.
Maybe.
So that's what I kept saying. Because with 5, he's always got different motives for everything he does. He's never really on the 100% up and up about things. But as you kind of see that they are basically coming to terms with what's going on, Reginald, though, has basically said, well, if you're not going to follow us, I'm going to have to do what I do.
I'm going to have to force your hand.
Yes. And he winds up killing Luthor.
Yep.
Which was...
with this weird tentacle sword thing.
Yes. And he tries pinning it on the Guardian, the one samurai-esque warrior that's walking around, that now the group is, seriously fight up to remember and go.
Yep.
And then during this whole melee of trying to figure out what happened to Luthor, 5 remembers who was talking with Reginald. And who was that, Pat?
Allison.
Yeah. So Allison is cutting a deal, and when the hotel is going, they're basically forced to go no matter what, because Allison's manipulation. Except Klaus.
Yeah.
Because Klaus is basically told
you got to stay behind. He's like, but I'll die. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, he said, no, you're too much trouble than you're worth. So all the connecting that Reginald had done with Klaus this entire season is out the window, and it was just a work, which I love the dramatic twist here. That worked for me. And then you see at this point, Klaus is just like, you know what? If I'm going to die, I'm going to go out completely in a unique way. He forces himself onto the horn of the buffalo that is hanging in that suite and impales himself.
Yep.
However, though, in the
afterlife,
I guess that's the easiest way you could describe it. He runs into Luthor, and they basically say, "Well, we have to go back.
Yeah,
we can't let it end like this because everybody else is at the Hotel Oblivion, and you're seeing that. Well, Reginald is basically saying, you know what? I don't want to deal with you people anymore." And he unleashes Guardians on him. Yeah. How you feeling about this, Pat?
Felt a little weird. Felt a little like I knew it was coming at some point just because while the rest of the crew split up into groups and to go throughout the floors, he stayed behind in the lobby. I'm like, all right, he's clearly going to hit the button.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's all about himself. He has no loyalty to anybody, even though they're so desperately to have that father figure in their life. There's no loyalty whatsoever. Unless Poco was there, all bets are off.
Right.
And you're seeing that the Guardians are absolutely thrashing the Umbrella Academy. You see 5 loses an arm. You see Diego is running for his life pretty much, which, I mean, he never does. You see Allison is trying to say she had nothing to do with this part of the deal with Victor, but that's going completely, for the wayside. And then all bets are off because Klaus and Luthor return. And when Reginald's scheme is completely exposed, this is where the beginning of the end finally happens. Because 5 notices where to hit the reset button.
Yep.
So the whole thing that Reginald was trying to do but yet didn't want to do, 5 decides to kick off and obviously have everybody stand in their position for the stars to activate.
Well, Reginald has them stand in the places, but he makes a point to say to Allison, because Allison's making a step towards one of the stars. He goes, no, not you.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
I did too. 5 understands what's going on and he knows that there's a reason for everything he's doing. Because I say, he's the smartest guy in the room. But once this starts going off and now you're hitting the reset, Allison kills Reginald because she realizes that the team is going to die because of their sacrifice.
Well, yeah, because they're standing there, they're turning all shades of blue. It looks like it even looks like some of their hair's starting to fade away, and they're screaming in pain. And she's like, "Stop! You're hurting them! You're hurting them!" And he's like, Reginald even says the line, there has to be a payment for the sacrifice, or something like that. And that's when she even tries using her powers to make him stop. Doesn't work, so that's when she picks up the weapon that got left behind by the Guardian and then slices his head in half.
Yeah, like it's a wild scenario to happen, but now the universe is reset.
Well, it's in the process of getting reset. It had stopped, but it was like 99% of the way there because you had the little red circle thing on the display that was there. Like, it was like the big red button. Push me, and she goes up and she's trying to, will she, won't she? And everyone's like, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. No, don't do it. Well, she does it.
Yeah, she does it. So now you're kind of at a partial reset. It kind of felt like a full one, though.
Kind of.
Because Allison is now reunited with her family that she thought was lost.
In Los Angeles.
Yep. So she's away from the team.
Yep.
And I think that's why Five had her step away at the origin, because I think he understood what was going on.
Could be.
The only thing he didn't calculate is when the rest of the group is now standing in this park. You do see the hotel is gone.
It's where the hotel was supposed to be, yeah.
Right. It's a memorial for Reginald Hargraves.
Which I do love what Victor says right at the end, and she just looks at the statue and just says, asshole.
Yep. And you do see that, well, the team is back, but they're really not.
Yeah, well, Luther's standing there, and he's supposed to be dead because while he was there in the fight sequence, we did find out that Klaus is the one who brought him there. His hand was glowing blue. Couldn't keep it going, but so Luther's there, and he looks human.
Yeah, so he's lost his powers.
Diego has his fingers.
Yep.
Fives can't blink.
Yep, but he got his arm back.
He got his hand back.
Yep.
Diego doesn't know what the fuck to do with a knife now. He tries twirling it in his hands, and he drops it.
Yep.
Victor and Ben try using their powers to no avail. So clearly something's gone on where they're like, hey, we got to find out and get our powers back. And someone goes, why don't we just live our lives?
Yeah. And at this stage, too, Sloane is gone, so Luther takes off looking for her.
Yeah, because she's missing.
And then all the while watching from a skyscraper in the most Lex Luthor-esque moment of the show.
Yeah, because the camera goes up to a top-down view of where they were, zooms up, pans up, and it starts going across the city where, notably, a lot of those buildings have the name Hargreaves on them.
Yes.
Especially the one that says Hargreaves Financial.
Yes. So now we see that the one and only Reginald Hargraves has now gotten his wish.
With his wife Abigail back by his side.
Yeah, who is long dead. She's now back, and he's king of the world.
Yeah, presumably in yet another timeline, and I think deliberately so, because he's presumably ruling, if not the city, the entire damn world.
Yeah.
And the only group that knows how much of an asshole he is now doesn't have the powers to stop him.
And that's how it ends.
Well, until we get to the mid-credit scene.
Yeah, I mean, there was the first time ever mid-credit scene. And who was that?
That was with Ben. I guess the show people involved with the show are calling him Ben 3.0. It was kind of like a similar...
that makes sense.
It's a similar situation. We see him on a train in South Korea, riding the train, reading a book with 2 umbrellas on it. And they announced that like the next stop is coming up, and he just looks at the book and smiles, and it cuts to black.
It's interesting. I mean, overall, the show jumped around a lot.
Yeah, it did.
So if you hear us when we were giving the play-by-play, there was a lot of moving parts, but it was centralized in between the Sparrow Academy, the hotel, and the afterlife.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately, there was only 3 spots they went to. So I will say the pluses this season, I thought the acting was very good.
Yeah.
Like I said, I thought that, you had some very strong performances from Aidan Gallagher, Tom Hopper, Elliot Page, too.
Yeah.
I thought did an exceptional job.
Yeah.
And I thought for what the storyline was doing is, you have to remember with time travel, like we always touch upon, it's
fucking confusing.
It gets confusing. And especially with how much they relied on it, they showed this brand new team. They didn't really dive into a lot of the other members. I mean, you got a quick original 7 of the Sparrow Academy.
Yeah.
And they gave a quick intro, like their powers, like the one could spit, like...
Make them hallucinate.
Yeah, making like a hallucinogen. But, I mean, honestly, other than a quick fight scene here and there, they were kind of forgettable. Which, it makes sense, because at the end of the day, there's only one group you really care about, and that's the Umbrella Academy that you've grown with over the past years. I thought the show, though, definitely hit its mark when it got near the end of the season, because when you stopped playing frenemy with the Sparrows, I thought, okay, now we're going to get onto the legitimacy of what we're doing here. Because Reginald Hargraves is such a weird character to begin with. He's a completely insane Professor X of his expectations and his tough love mentality. And you got to see when he accomplished his dream of how broken it was to begin with. So now you're seeing that when he sees, okay, well, the end of the world is coming. I'm trying to do this. I have a reset button. If I don't like what I've seen, and apparently he's too much of a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Because as we saw in season 1, he couldn't handle the team doing what they were doing. He was always too tough on them and broke them.
Yeah.
And then you see, obviously, in season 2 with their mission going into time travel and how he first met them.
Yep.
And now in 3, where he finally got his perfect team, and yet they were not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So he still had a reset button. It's just an interesting dichotomy of events that he winds up pulling off here.
Yeah.
But it still makes for an entertaining season. Like I say, you just got to bear with the time travel jumps in the sense of, okay, we're here, we're there, we're here, we're there.
You're also jumping between 14 different people.
Yeah, like that's the one thing too. Like we always complain about the Walking Dead cast. This one's big, especially for the amount of screen time they were giving everybody. Like I will say, they gave enough sensitivity time for Luther's relationship with Sloane.
Yeah.
So that made sense. Like it wasn't forced. Like I say, they were definitely respectful of that. They definitely made that into a big focal point. I thought the entire episode 8. Maybe you could cut down on it, but they really want to drive home the point of this is the end of the world and this is how they're going out. So I get that point. I'm not mad about that at all. But I think for overall, I definitely say the season was very good. I liked it a little better than Dallas, but I liked it because once you start getting into the team versus Reginald, I think that's where they hit their strong suits. I think the fact that you had so many people playing double deals with the Sparrows took away a little bit in the beginning. I mean, maybe that's just me.
No, a little bit.
But nothing I would say it was a game breaker by any means. I think that you should definitely go check the season out. I think you should check out the comics too. Give them a read and then get your own opinions on it. I think, though, I got to read the last chapter of the comics, though. Mm-hmm. I have not finished that out, so I'm not going to say I'm completely comfortable talking about that. But I will say it should be light years better than Dallas. I'm not a fan of Dallas. It's not like a U.S. agent level of dislike, but I gotta say Dallas is not one of my favorite books to read. But this is a show that I definitely highly recommend. I think they do a great job with it. Pat, final thoughts on this?
Great at season, fantastic stuff, and I'm excited for season 4.
Yeah, season 4 has been, I don't think officially announced. I think they just kind of said we're coming back. But they can't leave it on a cliffhanger like this. I think the show is too popular not to. And I think now that the hype behind Stranger Things has died down a little bit, I think you're going to hear a lot more people talking about Umbrella Academy within the next couple weeks. It's going to be tough, though, with the boys' season finale coming out, though. Just putting that out there. But that being said, we gave you our take of Season 3 of the Umbrella Academy, so hit us up on that hashtag ODPH Pod. What is your thoughts about Netflix hit series, The Umbrella Academy? Did you love this season? Did you hate this season, and why? Let's talk about it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Do your hobbies include comic books, movies, television, and or video games?
Are you always behind with the latest news in the world of nerd?
Well, look no further than The Oblivion Bar, a nerd culture podcast.
Oh, great Scott!
Hosted by Chris Hacker and Aaron Knowles, The Oblivion Bar offers a weekly review of all the latest breaking news, in-depth discussions far beyond whether Han shot first, and newsletter section, where you, the listener, send in your questions to be answered live on the show.
New episodes every Monday, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts.
I'm just so freaking excited!
You can also find us on Twitter at Oblivion Bar Pod.
Come join us at the Oblivion Bar Podcast.
Hope to see you there.
Coming back for another segment of this edition of the ODPH Podcast. And Pat, it's finally time to return to the movies.
Yeah.
It's been long overdue, but we are finally here. Marvel Studios' Thor Love and Thunder is going to be hitting theaters this weekend. So the hit franchise of the God of Thunder, played by the one and only Chris Hemsworth, is now returning. Taika Waititi is back in the director's seat. Natalie Portman has returned into the role of Jane Foster, which I never thought I would see happen again.
Yeah.
Because obviously it was not exactly the best parting of the ways last time from reports. And then Christian Bale is making his MCU debut as Gore, the God Butcher.
Yep.
So this is going to be borrowing a lot from the Jason Aaron storyline, which if you haven't read Jason Aaron's Thor, do yourself a favor, go check it out at your local comic shops. It's fantastic. And this one got kind of a little polarizing reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, allegedly.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, which I don't put a ton into that. I would say this. You know what you're going to get out of this franchise because obviously if you've seen Thor Ragnarok, it's going to have a lot of that same humor, a lot of the same...
Have you seen a Marvel movie? Have you seen a Taika Waititi Marvel movie? You know what you're getting.
Yeah, so it's not exactly anything you got to worry about too much. It's a situation that I think that you're going to go in, you're going to see a very good story, if there's especially how much they want to borrow from the Jason Aaron run. I think that there's a lot of possibilities they can go with, and obviously this is going to tie in some events after Avengers Endgame. We know the Guardians of the Galaxy are going to be making an appearance for how long we don't know, but this will roll into Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I would imagine.
Maybe.
And then after that, the MCU is going to be done for a little bit till the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we do know we have some shows coming out on Disney+. She-Hulk will be the next one coming out. And then I believe Secret Invasion.
I don't know.
Because, yeah, they have not fully announced that lineup just yet. But I imagine that we're going to hear something within a couple weeks coming out of San Diego Comic-Con. So, Pad, final preview thoughts, ideas for this movie.
Should be a lot of fun. I mean, listen, the reviews are the reviews. Opinion is subjective. I'm excited to see it. You got Chris Hemsworth back as Thor. You've got Christian Bale in the MCU as Gore the God Butcher. That should be awesome. You got Jane Foster is back. Taika Waititi's back. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see Taika Waititi doing Guardians of the Galaxy lines because that humor should be absolutely phenomenal. No, I'm excited to see where it goes, and then I'm excited to see kind of where it builds off from because it doesn't feel like with these movies, like you had the Spider-Man movie, which we knew which it was going to kind of go, and then you had Doctor Strange 2, which was going to build off of that, plus WandaVision. This kind of really isn't building off of anything, so it's kind of off in its own little world and its own little thing, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, I'm excited because of the Jason Aaron storyline they're going to be borrowing from. I don't know what to the exacts of it. I think they're going to be taking a rough outline and really
rumors.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of rumors circulating about this, and I think all for the right reasons, because when you are borrowing from great comic runs, and I always use Captain America the Winter Soldier as prime example of this. That is still my favorite Marvel movie of all time, because that story from the comics is second to none. The fact that you actually brought Bucky Barnes back, who was a character that was on that trinity of you can never bring back after they've been killed off.
Yeah.
Which has basically been just dwindled down to Uncle Ben Parker.
Yeah, pretty much.
So he's the only person that's ever stayed dead thus far until he comes back as Venom. Just going to put that out there. No, I kid. But for what we're going to get out of this movie, this is going to be something fun. I think that you have to go in with some light humor because that's where they're kind of taking this. That Thor in the comics is going to be a lot different than Thor in the movies. Mm-hmm. Thor in the movies is a little more lighthearted, a little more finding a zest for life, so to speak, after coming off the darkened events of Endgame where he should have taken the headshot and then it wouldn't have been in this mess to begin with. And I think that now you're going to see a lot of light and you're going to see a lot of good humor mixed in and then him trying to find his way, whatever that's going to be. We do know there's going to be a crossover with the Greek gods, with Zeus, played by the one and only Russell Crowe.
Should be wild.
Yeah, so that scenario is going to be absolutely crazy to see how this takes up on stage.
And we know there's been coordination between the writers of Thor and then the writers of, Moon Knight. Because I think the writer, the guy, either Taika or whoever wrote the script for Thor, said in an interview they spoke to Marvel and like, hey, we want to collaborate with the guys from Moon Knight, make sure we're not stepping on anything on how gods are portrayed. And so you did have a little collaboration between those two writing teams.
And I think that's the right call to do too, because obviously Marvel, everything's connected, everything's on point, everything is where it needs to be. So this is a situation that for moviegoers, there's a lot to be excited about. This now feels like a summer blockbuster is finally coming to the big screen, and especially for Marvel, who I'm not saying is taken, coming off a loss by any means, because let's face it, their last two movies they had come out, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
So the win streak is back on and running. I don't think there's been anything out there that suggested that this is not going to be a great movie. Like I say, you have to take reviews online, subject to change. Because obviously a couple clicks here and there, and that can sway a lot of different things. But for the most part, they've got a great script to work with. It's going to be an interesting story to see how this portrays. And then where we're going to go into from here, I got to imagine this is just going to lead into Guardians of the Galaxy. We might see, quite possibly, a Tom Hiddleston Loki appearance.
I doubt it. They just started filming.
Well, you never know. But if he filmed a quick cameo when this was done, like I say, it'll be something quick if you do. But I think that you will see this lead into Guardians of the Galaxy, and then where we go from here is going to be anybody's guess. But with Marvel returning to Hall H, they definitely want to go in on a very big high note. I think all signs are going to point to this. Am I saying this is going to be the greatest movie of all time? No, but it's going to be a fun movie for the summertime, and definitely having Marvel back in the theaters is something to definitely go watch about. We will be reviewing this on next week's podcast, so we'll have a lot more to say about it. But, final preview thoughts on this, Pat?
Excited to see it. Excited for the bonus scenes.
Yeah, I am too. Give me Beta Ray Bill. If I don't see Beta Ray Bill in this, I'm gonna be mad. I'll give it 0 stars. Not a kid. I'll probably give it 1. But I'm expecting a lot of good things from this. I'm expecting a bonus scene with Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm hoping Beta Ray Bill. That would make a lot of sense. I wouldn't doubt Adam Warlock.
Maybe.
I could definitely see that cameo making an appearance here. And then if they want to try establishing what's going to be the next big phase, I think that this might be the time to do it. But I could definitely see them waiting until the latter films of this year. I think that we got to keep our eyes on that. But for what we're expecting out of this, I'm expecting to have some fun at the movie theaters. We've got a big group that we're going to go watch the showing with, so definitely have a lot to say about next week. So that being said, ODPH Society, hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. What is your thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder going into the theaters? What's your expectations? What are you hoping to see? What are you hoping not to see? Let's have that discussion, and remember, we'll keep it spoiler-free until next week on social media. We'll give everybody the weekend to go watch the movie. So that being said, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is Tom from Tom Joe Lou,
This is Matt from Sidemen Sounds.
and you're listening to ODPH Podcast.
Wanna go where no one knows my name, to the desert, the oceans, or the plains. 'Cause I wanna...
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH Podcast. Pat, what you got?
Got just one thing to talk about, and this which came out today by complete surprise, but I'm happy to see it and happy to talk about it. We did get a new trailer, although admittedly it's only like 30 seconds. Trailer for the upcoming God of War game Ragnarok, and we got a release date.
Ooh.
There was rumors of it getting pushed back again. They decided to quell those rumors because we found out today that it is officially getting released on November 9th, 2022. So thank you, Sony Santa Monica Studios and Corey Balrog for the birthday gift, because that's coming out on my birthday. Reading from an article on the PlayStation blog, it reads the headline reads, Kratos and Atreus fight to survive against mounting dangers in the brand new God of War Ragnarok father and son CG trailer. The article reads, God of War Ragnarok is officially coming to PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 on November 9th, 2022. We're thrilled to be able to share our release date and the brand new God of War Ragnarok father and son CG trailer with all the God of War fans who have been eagerly awaiting news. We hope you enjoyed a glimpse of some of the dangers Kratos and Atreus could find themselves up against as Ragnarok approaches. They also did unveil a collector's edition, which has got a lot of stuff, including, I think it comes in like a 16-inch replica Mjolnir container thing. Like, it's absolutely wild. So you can definitely check out some of the photos are online for that, though. But yeah, definitely give the trailer a check out. There's not much going on with it. It's a CG trailer. It just kind of shows Atreus and Kratos going around fighting things. There is a giant wolf at one point, which is kind of like the symbol that Ragnarok's coming. But yeah, no, there's going to be a few gods to kill. Thor, one. Odin's another one. There's also the whole twist with Atreus' identity, which I don't want to reveal here, because that's a plot twist. No matter how much time goes by, you should experience for yourselves. But I'm super excited to get it when it comes out on November 9th.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a game to go watch. And I know that you have that circled and then some on your calendar, and rightfully so, because, I mean, obviously it's kind of a big deal. So for mine, one quick news story, and then we're going to be talking comics. So according to Deadline, the Duffer Brothers, who are responsible for the phenomenon known as Stranger Things, has now just formed Upside Down Pictures and is committed to Netflix for several new projects. Like I said, this is quoted from the Deadline article. So the one, though, that jumped out at me about this is there's a new live action show of Death Note coming.
Yeah, because the first one went so well.
Yeah, so, I mean, how are you feeling about that, Pat?
Never seen it, so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they've got a bunch of new ideas coming out for this, and one of it is going to be a Stranger Things spinoff. So, obviously, with the success of that show, and definitely I'll have a lot to say about that on social media this week, this is a big deal for Netflix, especially getting that big win, because Stranger Things has just been dominating everything, too. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. The last 2 episodes came out. You cannot escape the social media memes about it, no matter how hard you try. So if you want to go check it out, definitely, and especially for the Duffer Brothers to get their new production company up and running, that's a big deal. And this is going to be seriously big for Netflix with a lot of new content coming out. So kudos to that. So going to the comic shops, a lot of stuff coming out this week, Pat. Lot of good stuff. So Comixology Originals, I love that brand, and they definitely are doing a lot of big things there. One of my favorite books, though, is coming to a close for Season 1, and that's Red Tag So Javier Escavon, Javier Albuquerque, and Roger Cruz are tying up the story of three friends who are fighting the good fight against political corruption, and definitely ending the series on an extremely high note. If you haven't checked out the book, it's very, very worthwhile. I thought it was a very strong ending to what has been a very surprise series for me, because I wasn't sure what to expect from this. I've been blown away by this. I think the book is just tremendous. So you definitely want to go check that out on Comixology Originals right now. So definitely make a point to do that. Now, from Boom Studios, one of the series that we have been following for quite some time on Parlay Points is back, and that's Basilisk number 9. So now they're heading into the final stretch of the Battle of the Chimera versus the rest of the world. What can we say? Cullen Bunn, Jonas Scharf, doing a lot of crazy things in this one. So this is kind of a setup. So Basilisk's Pad is a very intense book. I don't know if you would exactly like it because it's very horror-centric
then no.
in circumstances, but it's very, very gritty. It's very in your face, and they definitely present it extremely well. Like, I personally dig it a lot. I think it's a very dope book, and to see that they have announced that this is going to be heading into the final chapter is going to be something exciting. From the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers universe, Mighty Morphin number 21. This is a book that obviously we're on that charge to 100. Mac Room and Moises Hidalgo is doing some really cool things with this. And like we say, to that big issue that's going to be happening with the legacy numbering of 100, expect some wild stuff happening here. This is definitely picking up some steam. And especially from where the Rangers were last time, where obviously the events of the Altarian War, they lost their command center, Pad.
Oh, boy.
They had to go get a new one. So a space heist, now they're back on Earth, and definitely picking up the pieces from a lot of storylines that are going on. So you definitely want to check that out. And like I say, the work that's going on there is always top-notch from the Mighty Morphin universe over at Boom. And from Boom Studios as well to Once and Future number 27, one of the best damn books on the market. And this book, I'm just going to show Pat the cover.
Oh, okay.
Because it is intense. It is as good as is. Kieran Gillen and Dan Mora, who Dan Mora might be the best artist in comics right now, just putting it out there. Definitely coming up with some wild takes about everybody's favorite trio, trying to definitely stop the supernatural and then some and keep balancing the world. It is just it's a fantastic book. I mean, I recommend it all the time, and I definitely want to keep recommending it too. There is just so much cool with that book. It's not even funny. Like, you definitely want a cool read. That is what you need to check out. And then coming from DC Comics, Batman 125. Chip Zdarsky has taken over the helms at writing pad.
Oh.
So this is a must-read for anybody. His work is always, always, always top shelf, so you definitely want to keep an eye out for that. And last but not least, we have to do a special programming announcement. So coming out at some point, I think we'll drop that episode on Monday, if not sooner. Myself and Tom from Off the Cuff Gamings and that hashtag show are going to be talking to Melissa Flores about a book coming out from the massive universe. You know Radiant Black, you know Rogue Sun. We talk about it all the time. The Dead Lucky will be coming out August 3rd, so we're going to be talking to Melissa about that and a whole bunch more. Super excited to talk about that, and definitely make sure you get down to your local comic shops. Get the pre-order in by July 11th for the Dead Lucky. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. I can't wait to talk about that episode. Can't wait to talk to Melissa about the book and everything going on with that. So make sure you drop that follow to the ODPH, and you won't miss that episode when we decide to drop it. And as always, support your favorite LCS and your favorite independent comic podcast. That said, Pad, the music you heard on this edition of the ODPH is that Shout at the Robots. They're fantastic people. They do a lot of really cool things. Pad, if I want to find out more about them, where do I go?
ODPHpodcast.com.
Right on. You swing on over to the music section. Check out everything going on with Shout, Brian Wolf, Yard Party, Floodlands, Second Suitor, Tom Jolu. The list goes on and on, but it's all fantastic people. Also, while you're on the website, we already talked about Parlay Points. You want to get blog recommendations when you go to the LCS? Boom, it's right there. You want to get Dre Driven's take on Miss Marvel? Boom, it's right there. You want to get Coach Duffy's random sports comments? Boom, it's right there. How about some pro wrestling talk? Bam, it's right there. Anything you need for more extra content, we put it out there for you for free, so definitely go check that out. Also, while you're there, go check out the directory, because, Pat, how many providers are we on now?
76,000.
Wow, that's an even number. Like, boom.
Yeah.
So definitely go check that out. And if we're not on your favorite podcast provider, let us know. We'll try getting on there. If not, and you're like, man, I wish I could remember to hit that follow button for you, we put it right there, so you just hit follow. It's on all the major providers, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Ghana, Good Pods. Basically, if you are listening to any podcast, you should go right there, just hit your follow, and definitely drop that 5-star review for us, too. It does help the algorithm. Also, check out the classified section, which has friends of the show, such as 8122 Productions, Dragon Master Games, Excite Wrestling, and also organizational links supporting Black Lives Matter, voter registration, and all the amazing links to the pod groups that we are in. So shout out to the Inner Circle. Shout out to the Apocalypse. We're all doing big things over here. And, of course, 607 Podcasts. All that, the TeePublic Store, and so much more. ODPHpodcast.com. That's all I got for this week. So for the one and only Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. See you next time.
The evidence is burned. Magnets to the tape. The darkness has crept up to cover your face. Sliding backwards in disguise, and nothing collapses into place. So we try to keep our heads above the water, but it gets so hard to breathe out here. Always falling backward, never find our feet. What the hell are we doing? Empty cars on empty streets, running a static, bouncing around and around and around and around in our defeat. So we say, with the last been broken voices in the sky. Drowning our voices, collapse on the sound, lost and forever, waiting to be found. We're up in the clouds and there's no coming down. We're lost in the crowd, there's no one around. The racket boys are calling, chicken man looks thin, hiding in the rafters, swallowing the sin. A little deviation from the little task at hand.